At the base of the Voortrekker monument in Pretoria, descendants of the original trekkers gather, the Boers who set off into the unknown to found their own country. White opponents of de Klerk are trekking again, this time a political trek, to defy the new South Africa by conjuring back the potent symbols of the old. The rally was called by the Conservative Party to demonstrate the scale of white opposition to the president's reforms. It was said that 100,000 people would come to Pretoria, many of them defectors from the National Party. They invoked two former liberation struggles, the Anglo-Boer Wars, under the banner, "The Third Freedom Struggle has begun." Okay, the whole range of conservatives was there. Hendrik Verwoerd, son of the Prime Minister who launched the whole concept of apartheid, promoting his demand for a separate state for whites, the Volksstaat. Organizing the rally, the Conservatives' chief whip, Koos van der Merwe.
Jy moet tog asseblief sorg dat die kos nou gereed is, want die mense gaan nou begin eet en hulle gaan honger wees. Die perde behoort teen 11 uur te wees, daar gaan omtrent 600 of 700 van hulle wees, en hulle sal hier deurry hieronder, en dan gaan die perde daar na boontoe.
Conservatives argued that de Klerk won the last election under false pretenses. They say he had no mandate to unban the ANC and negotiate with its leader, Nelson Mandela, the black leader they hate. With under a quarter of the seats in the White Parliament, these Conservatives can't oust de Klerk. But they hope their protest will stop him in his tracks.
He will take notice of this. I think, if anything is working on his nerves, it's the fact that the people have turned against him. And this is proof of it. The spirit of the people is one of nationalism, Afrikaner nationalism, the love for our own. It is exhibited here today, it is demonstrated. We will not surrender to the ANC. We will live here as a free nation like you people live in Britain. Here is the demonstration.
The organizers were disappointed that only 50,000, not the 100,000 they'd promised, came to demonstrate their anger with de Klerk. But it was still the biggest rally South Africa had seen for many years and issued a direct challenge to the government.
Dames en heren, ik stel aan u voor die hoofdleier en die leier van de Afrikanerdom, Dr. Andries Strudde.
Die derde vrijheidsstrijd het inderdaad begin. Moenie ons mense dwing om in uw pad te gaan staan en u te daag om oor ons te loop nie. Zoals maar wij glo bij gelegenheid in die mond van een van zijn sprekers in die diepe recht en zijn mond geleerd. Als jij een trotse volk verknecht, wordt opstand tegen die recht, zijn recht. Ons is ernstig. Dat is niet voor ons een schip in die haven om ons hier vandaan weg te vat nie. Hierdie is ons vaderland.
You can say until you're blue in the face that he is breaking the constitutional rules, he has deceived the electorate. But unless you can shift him, unless you can force him to an election, you'll get nowhere, will you?
The way that you do it in a democratic country like yours and mine is the type of action that we've seen today. And eventually, let us jump to a conclusion. Maybe the same will happen in this country as has happened in Romania. In Romania, there was a dictator for 25 years. He knew all the dirty tricks in the book. He didn't want to resign. And at one stage, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 people just walked over him. And if necessary, 500,000 of our people will walk over de Klerk, destroy him, if he doesn't want to come back and give us an election.
De Klerk's reaction to the challenge from the far right has been to don war paint and go into battle against them. Buying time on the commercial network, he promotes his message that negotiations to share power are now the only way forward for South Africa.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A hearty word of welcome to this unique occasion, which has been arranged by the Information Service of the National Party.
Television appearances by de Klerk are a key part of the propaganda campaign being planned by the National Party's Information Committee. Senior party managers who once tried to persuade the country that apartheid was the only solution to South Africa's problems now have to convince voters that the opposite is true. With the help of a public relations advisor, the party is discussing how to sell their as yet vague ideas of how power can be shared with blacks, but white interests protected.
What you want to do is you want to govern the country in the interest of the whole South African population, so everybody has an interest in what you're doing.
As they grope towards the outline of a political settlement, the party is acutely aware of the danger that uncertainty about the future will further erode their support.
There's a huge need for information amongst the population. Otherwise, they see things happening, they hear about things happening, and they don't know what it is all about. That creates insecurity and apprehension and even fear, because people don't know what South Africa is going to look like in 2 years' time or in 5 years' time. And that, of course, they become victims to the, or easy prey to the siren songs from the right, who promise to take them back to the good old days when they didn't have any insecurity.
The only security the government can offer nervous whites is to persuade them that they won't be politically overwhelmed by the black majority. Freedom of education, worship and language, they say, would be guaranteed by the Constitution. The new political system would be federal to prevent any one group from becoming all-powerful. The message, intended to reassure, is carried to voters by a leading member of the government's information team.
The mere fact that so many people responded for this particular House meeting, I think, is an indication of to what extent people are concerned at the moment. And we accept that people are concerned, and we accept that people have a lot of questions.
Do you really think that the whites will be able to retain a share in the government? Because the track record in South Africa, and in Africa, is that the blacks take over, they become a dictatorship, and even the other groups of blacks don't have any democracy.
I honestly believe that we will end up with a constitution that also makes provision for groups to make themselves felt, not to be dominated.
Now, after a year or two, what stops them from saying, okay, they make all the promises, no, we won't nationalize that, and we won't nationalize that. And after 2-3 years' time, they just nationalize it and they say, we're going for a one-party state.
I don't believe, and it's not our intention, to just hand over power. I don't believe that the ANC will be the government. They might be part of a government, but the ANC, even if we should hand over the country to them on a platter tomorrow, they will not govern this country. They won't be allowed to. That's why the hostels exploded. That's why the hostels exploded. They will not be able to dominate this country.
Are you allowed?
6,
Maar kijk hier,
5,
want hier staan hier, hier is de round-up of
3,
all.
2, 1,
Rol.
Good evening. The state president, Mr. F.W. de Klerk, will meet U.S. President George Bush in the United States on September the 24th.
The state-owned South African Broadcasting Corporation has always been the government's most powerful weapon of political persuasion. It's still on their side, swamping viewers with the new message.
Only when South Africa is able to offer safe, peaceful and profitable investment opportunities will foreign investors consider coming here to help us create the wealth which we need.
We stand for, we can sum it up, for evolutionary, peaceful change.